edition of Beyond the Lens, where we talk a lot about landscape photography. And today we're going to take a look at the new release of Lightroom 13. A couple of really cool things in this new program, and I'm going to show you how I believe they can relate to improving the processing of your landscape photos. So without further ado, why don't we dive on in? Okay, so let's take a look at some of the new features we have in Lightroom Classic. Three actually that I want to talk about today, and I want to start first off up here in the Basic tab. And when you open the Basic tab now, you're going to wonder where in the heck did the Color tab go to? Well, they took that away. So like, let's say I wanted to turn this into a black and white. I could click there. Where's my Color tab to click out? Well, you don't. You just simply re-click on the black and white tab and you come out of it. But this is a new tab that was interesting to me called HDR. And what HDR is, it's addressing the new HDR monitors that are coming out on the market, the 6Ks and higher. And when you click on it, the main thing you're going to see is an expanded histogram up here. And it's going to expand by a remarkable 4 stops of light on the bright side, which I think is incredible. You can see on this, it actually blew my moon out. Let me turn that off and then turn it back on. And excuse me, that's because I am working on a standard def screen, a 36-inch BenQ. I don't have a high def screen, nor do I want to get one right now. I think this is all well and good, but to me, it triggered a thought of, if I've got all that extra dynamic range up in the brights, how's that going to translate when I go out to print? So I got on the phone just before making this video, and I contacted a gentleman I know at Bay Photo Lab who is in the tech department. And we discussed this in Lightroom. He was aware of this. He's aware of the high def monitors. And he's basically telling me that once again, technology on the monitor end is outpacing the technology of the printers. The printers haven't quite caught up yet. Not to say that they won't. And in fact, Bay Photo has an option now for print to be made at 610 DPI. And he said that helps recover a stop or two in the highlights, but certainly not out to 4. But, you know, down the road, it will get there. So if you are one that has a high def monitor, or you're thinking about purchasing a high def monitor and you're going to, you know, process your images off of it and you get them looking really cool, just be aware when you go out to print, you might be a little disappointed that that highlight range from midtones on up to the brightest highlights all in through here is not going to have the same look as what you're seeing on your monitor. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's click out of there. Now I want to come down to the two panels that are really kind of exciting to me. The first one is this lens blur, and before I click on it, you're going to see it says next to it early access. And it doesn't mean it's in the beta mode. It just simply means this is a tool, in my sense, this is a tool that's in progress. And with every iteration out, it's going to get better. In fact, when we open it up, you're going to see down here on the bottom, there's a link that says click here to share feedback on lens blur. And I think this is really awesome that Adobe is giving us the ability to contact them. This isn't something new with Adobe. They've had this. And give our feedback on this and tell them what we like about the tool, what we're struggling with, maybe something we'd like to see added or modified. That's how you would give your feedback to Adobe. Okay, let's take a look at this. By default, this little check mark next to apply will be off. So when I apply it, you're going to see that I have a blur amount, and it's always defaulting halfway at 50 points. You can also see that down here, let me turn this off again. It put some blur on the water, and it's also came down from the top, put a little blur on the moon. And let me go, you can definitely see it in the water. Let me see if I can bring that moon up. Whoops. Yeah, I'm going to bring it up a little bit more for you. You can see it's starting to get a little out of focus. I apologize there. We'll let it go. You can trust me on that one. And so there is a workaround on that. We're going to get to that in a moment. I'm just going to kind of work vertically down to talk about all of this. This is bokeh, and you're not going to see bokeh take effect on this particular picture. Most of the landscape stuff, I would say, you're not going to see bokeh have an effect. Where I have been playing with some images, and I wanted to keep this strictly to landscape, is if I pulled out a nightscape I shot of a city or downtown where there's points of light, that's when you can really see the bokeh kind of, you know, what's out of focus and the shape it's going to take. Like you have a hexagonal shape here. This one's cool. I tried an old sports photo. This gives you the old donut hole effect. I'm going to ask those of you that go way back and you know what a catatonic lens was. You don't see them made anymore. These were hand-holdable, like 500 millimeter lenses at a fixed aperture. The one I owned was an f8 Nikkor. And if you were shooting, like, let's say a baseball batter, it would render kind of these out-of-focus donuts of the crowd in the background. And you just don't see that effect anymore. And that's a really cool effect to have. And it was because of the way the lens was designed that you got that sort of donut hole bokeh. And that's what this one is, and a little bit this one here too. You can always boost the amount of the bokeh once you see it. Again, you're not going to see it in this landscape photo. That's what that slider would be. Okay, let's come down here. The next one is what they call the focal range. And I'm going to click on here where it says visualize depth. And we'll let this render for a moment. There we go. Usually what it's going to show you is anything that has a color is going to be in focus. Usually the warmer colors are the sharpest focus. And what comes back in here to dark is, in this case, would have been in focus because the moon is in focus. But generally from warm to cool tones, you're going, you know, from your front focus all the way through to your back focus. So let me take that off. You can also, let me watch the front of this photo as I shift the focus more towards the back. And we got to let this render also. And now you can see just up here in the front, this water got nice and sharp, but everything back in here went out of focus. So you can control what you want in focus and what you want out of focus. And you can expand the range of focus if you would like. So it's kind of a cool tool. Just play along with this. Depending, it's going to vary. Where I see it work best is if you're doing portraiture and you're trying to get, you know, what's in the background a little more softer, out of focus. That works great. I guess in landscape, if we were focused in, let's say either a telephoto or a macro on just a portion of, let's say, a flower, an isolated flower in a field, and you want to get the background a little more out of focus, then you can play around in here. So now that gets us down to the point, and I'm going to close this up because by default, you're going to see this little thing next to the visual depth called refine, and you're going to have this little triangular arrow that you click on, and it opens up this section of focus and blur. Now, I've currently got the focus on the water here. If I wanted to take the focus off the water, I could simply slide my amount over and everything comes back into focus. But I'm going to reset this at 50, and I'm going to go the other direction with this. What if I want to make this a little more blurry? Well, I don't want to mess with this, right? Because I'm going to get the moon out of focus. So right now, the moon is a little bit in soft focus. So what I have to do is first click on focus. And you see when I move the cursor in, it's kind of hard to see. I'll put it over the water. It's double-edged, you know, like most brushes when you come in. That's the feathering on the outer edge. And I'm going to blow this up with my right bracket key. And I'm going to make sure that moon is nice and sharp. So any blur or bokeh that was up there, I'm going to take it out by just painting across. Now I know that moon is nice and sharp. Okay, conversely, let's say, and it's rendering here, Sorry, my computer's running a little bit slow. I've got some apps open in the background, including the one that's recording me. So that's probably slowing things down. I'm going to change this now to blur. And I'm going to lower my brush down a little bit. Let's say I want to take the blur of this water into the frame a little bit more. So now I can paint across here. And we'll let that render. Okay, and you can see it did indeed blur that water all the way to where I painted it. So those are a few ideas that I have on how, I'm going to take that amount off because it bothers me, on how I would use this tool in landscape. And that's the blur tool. I'm also going to stay with this picture because I want to move now. We'll let this one render again. I'm asking it to take all the blur out of there that I painted. There we go. We're back to where I was. And I want to come up. This is the tool now, the last one I want to show you. And I'm going to start with this image here, is the color mixer. This used to be the old HSL panel. And you might wonder where that went. Well, if you click right here on mixer, there it is. There's everything that you had in there before, your hue, your saturation, your luminance. You can close that up. I have it all. You could just go to one panel. I always liked using the saturation panel, the luminance. But for this demonstration, I'm going to leave it open to all three panels. So let's say the way I used to do it, and I still love this tool to today, but they've refined it finally. I click on the targeted adjustment tool here, and let's say I wanted to bump these yellows up. You see the arrows run north-south, top-bottom. So I've just dropped this over part of the yellow, and I would raise up, and you could see quite a bit of yellow coming in. Okay, that was great, unless it's spilled, but it's making a global correction. So if there was other yellows in the scene, let's say, that I didn't want affected, how would I control that? I didn't have masking ability to do that. So let me reset this. And we're going to go into point color and talk about this. Now I can take this eyedropper, I can move it in. A couple cool things. I can hover it over just exactly what I want to click on, and I'm going to pick a yellow right there where the crosshairs are. So we get that magnifying glass. And then up here, you're going to see we get this part of like a color wheel, basically. And you're going to get to move around your hue, your saturation. Let's say I wanted to saturate those yellows. I'm going to pull on saturation. And you get luminance over here, your darks or blacks. So let's say I want to pull those up about there. I can also do these changes by just moving around in here. And if you see that little dot right there, that was my starting point. Let me move it down. See it right above? I could cover back up and get right back to my starting point. So whatever way you feel comfortable, moving your hue and your saturation, you could do it. I think for this image, I would just want to bring up the saturation shift a little in those yellows. That's cool. This over here is what corresponds to what this slider is. This is your luminance. So let's bump the luminance of the yellows up and bring them down. I'm just going to go kind of dramatic. And there you can see when I move off of it, it leaves the dot that was my starting point. So I'll put that back over here. This is also cool down here now. We have a hue range, a saturation range, and a luminance range. And I can even toggle these on and visualize it. So let's come in here and say I want to increase or move the saturation of those trees. And I can click on visualize, and everything else drops out to black and white. This is why I'm saying this is really cool. So you can kind of just see how I'm expanding this, what effect it's having on the colors that I would like to deal with. So it's just more refining to the way I see this. Let's click this off now and try another color. And this time I want to go into my greens. So I'm just looking at the crosshairs there. That looks like a good point to click. And I'm going to take my saturation. I'm going to bump that up a little in those greens. And I think I want to lighten those greens a little. So I'll come over here to this vertical slider, or I could stay down here to luminance shift and just brighten them up a little bit. Isn't that cool? I really kind of like that. I even have a range down here that I can expand out or contract. So a lot of freedom on what you want to do. We've kind of gotten over the top, but this is part of demonstrating live. And but here's the other cool thing. You come back up. Here's the 2 color swatches we were playing with, right? If I right click, I have an option. I can delete, let's say, that color swatch, or I can delete them all. So if I think I made a mistake, I went too far, I could say, nah, I'm going to start over on those greens. I'm going to come back in and we're going to start over. Maybe this time I just want to move this around a little bit, and I'm going to open those up a little bit. Color mixer, really cool. Let's try another image and see how some of this stuff can play. Here's another one. This is some cottonwoods we shot late afternoon in Grand Teton, and they were backlit. And you can see they're against a mountain of pine trees that was in full shadow, which I thought was really cool. Well, let's come back to our lens blur. And we're going to click apply. And the AI is going to go through and try to figure out what the subject of this shot is. And you can see it hasn't done a great job. It's just kind of looking at these front trees here. So let me take this boost down because we were playing with that in the last shot. And I'm going to take the amount down here. And now you're seeing some of these trees are starting to sharpen back up. Let's take it all the way off. And there you go. Now you're seeing that it's all back nice and sharp. So let's play just a little bit with it and see if we're starting now. You can start to see these pine trees going a little out of focus. We're going to come in a little more. Now they've gone way out of focus, but we're back here to these trees being out of focus. Okay, but remember, let's drop down here. We have this focus blur button, tabs rather. So I'm going to click on focus, and I'm going to make sure my auto mass is clicked. And I think this is better to do if you size this down a little. And we're just going to kind of paint over these trees and bring these trees back into focus. Isn't that cool? So it's really, we're starting to work into that realm of being able to change aperture at the computer now. I'm going to come back in here. We're going to bring these trees back into focus. And I'm pretty new at this, you guys. I've only been playing with this for about a day and a half, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot more I'm going to learn and you're going to learn, and I'd love to see your comments of what you've learned that I may be missing in this tutorial. Let's get that guy. Okay, so, we've kind of gotten that sharp now. Or, excuse me, we've gotten to just the tree sharp. I'm going to reapply it. And look at how that background goes out of focus. I may have done that too quickly, so let me unapply. You see the pines, they're dark, but they're sharp. And I'm going to reapply. And it's kind of like I've gone from an f11, f16 aperture. In fact, let's check what I shot this at. Oh, I shot this at f8, surprising. This was with a 100-400 lens I remember using. I was 800 ISO to get a fast enough shutter speed to stop these leaves from blowing around. And I was at 100, what does that say, 189 mil on that. But it just gives you that extra level of ability to take something that was kind of sharp and competing and taking it down a little. I want to come back up over here into the color mixer, and I'm going to now click into one of these dark trees back here, and let's see if we took the, what do I want to do here? Maybe, do we want to shift color? Well, there it brings it a little more green. That's not bad. Remember, it always leaves that little dot for your starting point. I got an idea. Let's take the luminance and let's try it up and let's try it down. Wow, that's pretty cool. Once again, I can go up and really reveal those trees and get them as sharp as I want them, or as, out of focus as I want them. That's what bokeh is telling you. I like that. I like that. I think that's a very cool form of masking that I can control the background, and down you come. By the way, I went in, let's go back to this previous, well, let's go on to a new one here, and I'll show you on this one. I was wondering what would happen, because when you apply one of these, let's go again here and use the point. And I want to bring up the yellows in these cottonwoods that are back here. This is Oxbow Bend. We had a very beautiful dawn morning out there. This is Mount Moran. And I want to see if I bring up the saturation on those trees, and I'm going to shift the hue a little bit more into yellows. Let's actually just try to move it with this tab. It's very fine-tuned. You know, I don't want to get those trees too red because they weren't. But in this case, they're not really affecting the other trees. I want to show you a little bit more. Let's grab onto one of those greens, and let's bring up the saturation in those greens, okay? And maybe even lighten them up a little. Okay. All right. Now, I want you, I really am not liking this. That is not very good, Don. Let's get rid of that. Let's delete that swatch. Let's bring our point eyedropper in here again. Select that. And it is selecting it a little more reddish than I'd want. Let's try the hue shift. Yeah, I'm not really getting it dialed in. There we go. What I needed to do was raise the luminosity on it. Now I'm getting the yellows to pop out of there. Okay, this sets me up for my final tip I want to show you, and then we're going to wrap this up. Let's drift over here and take a look at these cottonwoods that are along this bank, and they were held very faint because we had this mist rising off the Snake River. And so what I'm going to do, if I was to come over here and I was to click and let's say raise the luminosity up, you're going to see it's going to affect the trees over there to the right, right? So we're going to delete that. How do we get around that? Well, we're going to come over here and we're going to use the mask. And what I'm going to do is use a brush mask, and I'm going to raise this up a bit. And I just want to kind of paint into the area. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pick up all the yellows in these trees, but we'll give it a go. I'm just going to mask in, and I'm going to tell Lightroom that's the place that I want to do my point through. So I'm going to now click on the eyedropper, come in, select the color, and now when we come over to, I'm going to try, first of all, the saturation. I'm going to max it out. It came up a little, and it did not affect any of these trees. That's the cool thing. I think this will be the key test. Let's lighten this up. And yeah, because of the mist, it's hard. I'm just going to blow it out to gray. But you can see I'm making changes over there. We'll bring that a little, maybe we can right about in there. Okay, not a dramatic change, but I can even come back up out of this tool and probably bump just the contrast. A little too much. But that would be the way that you could work in with the masking tool and just mask off a portion of what it is that you want to work on. And you could go over and just paint as many of these. I did this all as kind of one fell swoop to come through there and get that. Let's try it one more time. I'm gonna add one more mask by clicking on my brush. I'm just gonna see if I can bring the yellow out of this tree right into here a little bit more than what's showing. So we're gonna now pick up the point tool, and let's come on over here to saturation shift. And I'm not so sure that's where I want to go. I think this luminosity, there it is. Look at that. Look at that pop right out of there. Isn't that cool? So those are the two new tools that I think can be a big benefit to us landscape photographers here in Lightroom. As I said, you guys, I'm rather new at this. I'm sure you guys are too. I just got my notification the other day and have been playing with it, but it's exciting. I can see where we're going with this tool. I want to commend Adobe for quite a while. I put a wrap on them for about 5, 6 years. I didn't think they were offering us photographers much at all. And now they've really gone all in on this AI. And it's pretty cool what they're starting to offer us these days. So I'm going to wrap the video up here. I want to make mention of the fact that we're going to start bringing a guest on this show. Again, these shows come out every Friday. And my guest next week, if everything works right, is going to be a local photographer here in Morro Bay. His name's Kerry Drager. He's been at this a long time. Kerry teaches not only at the local junior college, but he teaches online for Brian Peterson. His specialty is composition. We're working together to put a good working title together for you guys. That'll be a week from this Friday, and which would make it on the 20th. So please check in on that, and we're going to plan to have guests on at least once a month, along with other tutorials, and we're even going to get out on location here, start shooting some things. So everything landscape. So I appreciate you hanging in there, watching this with me till the end. I hope I've whetted your appetite for these two new tools. Hey, get into your version of Lightroom version 13. Start playing. Leave your comments below. You may figure out something I haven't even thought about. Let's share. Make this kind of a site where everybody can exchange information. So until next week, when we have Kerry Drager, you guys all take care. Keep shooting. Stay creative.